What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to GearBocks. So today, obviously from the title of the video, you know what we're talking about, another top 5 list. This is one that I've been wanting to do for a while, mainly because I wish I had a video like this before I started getting into things like this. Right? Topic of today is going to be some of your most, top 5 essential, tools or whatever to start thinking about kind of accumulating before you really start getting into modification. Now, obviously it goes without saying, if you've got a buddy with a certain tool or, you're borrowing your parents' tools or something like that, that's fine. But as you decide to, get some of your own stuff and start to develop a sense of, thanks truck, a sense of being independent and having your own stuff to actually use to modify cars, trucks, whatever, this is going to be the list for you. So without further ado, let's get into number 1. All right, number 1 on the list is going to be, obviously, a ratchet set. Now, one thing I want to point out here is, having a plethora of ratchets and sockets and whatever, great. What I would suggest, personally, get a set of deep socket, socket set. It's fine to have the regular. Deep sockets are going to give you a little more, I guess, variability between different installs or whatever, and of course these all decide to fall out here, so let's go ahead and put them back while we're talking. So just as a comparison, let's see, this is 3/4, we've got 3/4 standard size, deep socket size. If you have long bolts where you can't get actually down to that nut, this is where this is going to come into play. But guys, I mean, if you didn't see this one coming on the list, God help you. Obviously a good set of, sockets is great to have, and it's pretty much going to be a universal tool whenever installing anything or working on your car in general. Obviously standard metric sizes, most kits will come that way, but just make sure you kind of have both, especially if you are, working on the truck versus working on this. Typically different measurements or whatever will be taken, so just keep that in mind as well. But that is number 1. On to 2. All right, y'all, so moving on to number 2 on the list of essential tools you're gonna need while modifying car, truck, SUV, whatever, is gonna be a set of wrenches. Now this one, I just grabbed a, one set as far as my metric wrenches go, but having stuff like this going hand in hand with your socket set is going to be key. Now, one thing that I honestly didn't even know existed until I went to my buddy James's house. So James, if you're watching this, good on ya. He had these wrenches where obviously you have your standard wrench head here, I guess you call it. And then you have this. So you have basically a wrench and a socket wrench in one. This is extremely helpful, especially while we were at James's house. We were taking apart a 84, I believe, Ford Ranger's top end. They blew their head gasket, sucks for them. And having these little ratcheting wrenches, essentially, was key, and it's just gonna make your life a million times easier as opposed to just doing this number over and over again. Sometimes you have to, but if you have the option for a little ratcheting action, go for it. That is number 2. On to number 3. Starting off for number 3, we are going to yet another type of wrench. Allen wrench, Allen keys, whatever you want to call them. These little L-shaped bits here. these are going to be your friend. Specifically, at least in my experience, with interior pieces or some tiny little, basically non-weight bearing or anything like that type of stuff, that's just going to be the preferred kind of bit to screw it in. For example, this isn't really interior, but engine bay, the Cobb cold air intake, the actual cold air box that we had to build with the Stage 1 Plus kit, all Allen keys. You also have stuff in the interior here, I know center console, couple other little bits and pieces, and some exterior too. But this is something where you don't know you need them until you need them type of deal. So if you can even buy like, you know, a full toolkit, like a cheap toolkit, and they come with a couple of these, you don't need anything high end. Just get something that fits in the damn hole, you know, spin it around and you're good to go. Definitely something that I feel like most people wouldn't think about really. Everyone thinks of wrenches and socket sets and stuff like that, but when it comes to Allen keys, maybe that's overlooked. So that is number 3, and now let's get on number 4. Moving on to the 4th, I would say most essential tool that you can possibly have in your garage when it comes to modifying anything really, is going to be this. Now, some of y'all who don't necessarily know what you're looking at might say, well, John, I thought number 1 was socket sets and socket wrenches. And you're right. This is a special one though, and this will probably save your life in more ways than one. Yes, for number 4, we are talking about a torque wrench. Now, disclaimer here. I am a huge believer in torque wrenches, as should you. Ugga-duggas do not count, or they are not specified in torque specs, so get yourself a torque. It's not hard. It's not hard. But for those who are unaware, basically how these work, we've got these little deals here, and you've got your torque specs on the back, and you're going to twist it up, twist it up, twist it up until you hit that torque spec, and then you lock it in place by spinning the bottom, and you torque it, and it'll click once you get there. Literally everything on a car, boat, plane, train, I don't care, has a torque spec, and there is a reason for it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure everyone else watching this video too, but I will go ahead and admit it. There have been times where I have not necessarily followed and or looked up torque specs, and that's probably fine, sure, but is it best practice? No. Especially when you're talking about, I know you can't see this in the shot, but you know, putting on wheels, for example, what torque spec is it? Or, you know, engine components. Back to James, when we were putting the engine on his Ranger back together, you know, there's a certain torque spec and torque order for the engine head, for example. They all need to be followed. I know it's just an extra step you have to take to make sure everything's good, but it's just the way it is. Get one. I got this on Amazon for probably a third of the cost of normal torque wrenches, and you've got some that with like digital gauges and shit. You don't need that. Go manual for all intents and purposes. Get a torque wrench. It's gonna save your life. Go ahead and get a breaker bar while you're at it. I didn't do that. I just got a torque wrench. So maybe that's a mistake on my part. But long story short, torque wrenches are key in any modification, so go ahead and get one. And now let's get on to the 5th and final part. And for the 5th and final entry in the top 5 most essential tools you could possibly need in your garage to modify anything. If you didn't guess this one, better luck next time, but it's pretty obvious. We have an impact driver, impact gun, whatever the hell you want to call it. This one is battery powered, whatever, but it gets the job done. This is something that I held off on buying for so terribly long. And once I got it, I can't imagine life without it. And you'd honestly be surprised how much this comes in handy with shit around the house. Not even related to cars and stuff, but being able to take out big lag bolts or whatever. This thing is the shit. Once again, this is an Amazon purchase. It wasn't the cheapest one out there. I tend to not buy the cheapest shit anyway, but it wasn't, you know, a Milwaukee Impact. Another thing to note, a lot of people probably think of impact drivers and stuff of that nature as it relates to air tools. Yes, I have an air compressor. I could go ahead and get air tools, but I don't need them. For the application I'm looking for, this is going to suffice 100% of the time. And until I really see a need to invest in air tools, I'm just not going to. But kind of going back to the fourth point, this Ugga-Dugga, kind of Ugga-Dugga it on until it's snug, and then take it back to the torque wrench for number 4. These two are going to work perfectly together. This is going to tremendously speed up your time on installs. Once again, you don't have to go crazy with it, but I'm telling you, go ahead and buy a frickin' impact. It's the way to go, I promise you. I would not steer you in the wrong direction. Go get yourself an impact. All right, I know we said it was top 5, but we're giving you a little bit of a bonus entry here as I was just thinking about it, trying to really make sure I am giving y'all all of the, you know, proper information. So for our bonus entry, we're going to talk about plastic trim piece removers. There's a whole kit of them. They're weird orange things, almost look like crowbars and shit like that. I do not have them, but hear me out. If you're going to be doing a lot of trim piece removal and those little things where like there's a circle and a thing in here, pause, and then you have to pry up this part in order to get the rest of this part out. Yeah, that shit, go ahead and get yourself a plastic trim piece remover kit or whatever they're called. You're going to save yourself a lot of headache. Now, because similar to the Impact, I've held off on buying this for the longest time. I've got pretty good at dealing with it, you know, those pieces with a flathead screwdriver. If you want to around and find out with the flathead, go for it. But don't be disappointed when you break a couple pieces or two right off the rip. Now I'm at the point where I kind of know what I'm doing, so I don't break any pieces typically unless they're just straight up end of life pieces. But you will, you know, chew them up. So if that particular piece or something is, you know, a piece that you really want to make sure stays nice and pretty, don't use a flathead screwdriver. I promise you, it's not going to turn out well. But definitely something to keep in mind as it relates to just this entire topic. But anyway, guys, that's where we're going to end it today. If you found this video helpful, drop a comment down below. Also, if there are any other tools, tips, tricks, whatever, that you're willing to share with the GearBocks fam, be active in the comment section. I always love seeing people go back and forth, not just with me necessarily, although I appreciate it. I like seeing other people interact and you know, just kind of brainstorming on the, you know, channel of GearBocks. So we're gonna leave it there, guys. As always, really appreciate y'all watching today's episode of GearBocks. If you haven't already, give this video a big fat thumbs up. Drop a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. And until next time, peace.